At 25 years old, I closed my very first wholesale deal, $7,000. After 6 straight months of complete failure, I remember staring at that check like it was the golden ticket. It was the first real proof that this business of wholesale real estate actually works. But here's what nobody told me. Doing those first 4 deals within that first year of wholesale real estate was like catching rain in a bucket. It's exciting when it hits, but it's unpredictable and it's impossible to depend on. Building a real wholesale business, right? It's like any other business with systems, pipelines, and consistent monthly revenue that doesn't depend on luck. And in this masterclass, I'm going to show you exactly the steps that I use to go from sporadic, uncontrollable, unpredictable deals to consistently generating $30,000 to $50,000 every single month. More importantly, I'm going to show you how I help my students make that exact same shift to go from chaos to control, from guessing to growth, from hoping for a deal and scrambling for a deal to running a predictable, systematic wholesale business. And listen, if I could go from broke, jail, living with my mom, a ton of issues, a ton of vices, baggage, trauma, all that, if I could go from there to building a real wholesale real estate business that actually runs whether I clock in or not, then I promise you, you can too. But only if you follow the roadmap that I'm about to lay out to you. So lock in, pay close attention, grab a pen, paper, take some notes, because at the end of this class, I'm going to show you exactly how you can work directly with me and make this transformation inside of your own business. Now, let me take you back to when I first started, back to that first 6 months before I got my wholesale deal. I was trying everything. I was cold calling. I was calling Zillow Fizbos. I was calling agents. I was text blasting. I was buying a ton of lists, buying a ton of software that was unnecessary and I didn't need. And look, at the time, even though I was giving a lot of effort and I was working hard and I was grinding, looking back at it, I was just sprinting on a treadmill. I was moving fast, but going nowhere. Every lead I chased had already been hit by 8 other wholesalers. I was the 9th guy calling the same seller, asking the same question. And that's when it really hit me. I wasn't running a business. I was just fighting in a crowded arena with blunted swords. And here's what I realized that changed everything. Most wholesalers who get stuck after their first few deals are still doing what most people are doing. They're hitting the same lists, using the same scripts, competing for the same scraps. Ones who break through, they find the deals where there's no competition at all. That one realization was the start of everything for me. So let me tell you where everything shifted. I stopped doing what everybody else was doing. I started looking at the business from a completely different angle. While most wholesalers were calling Fizbo listings on Zillow that had been sitting there for 30 days or more, burnt out, overworked leads that had already been talked to by 20 other investors, I went the opposite direction. I started calling Fizbo listings that had been listed on Zillow for 24 hours or less. Fresh leads, untouched conversations. Because I saw that nobody else was really doing this on YouTube. Anybody else in the wholesaling real estate space, they weren't calling Zillow for sale by owners. And if they were going for listings that had been listed for 30 days or more. And they said that you do that because it's more likely that they're motivated, they're more tired, and they're more likely to give up. But really, when I started doing that, I found the exact opposite to be true. When I was calling the leads that had been up there for 30 days or more, everybody didn't want to talk, they didn't work with investors, they didn't want to hear anything. It was their price, it was their way or the highway. But when I started calling the fresh leads, these were people who actually wanted to talk. And that's when I realized something huge. If I could be the first person to call them, I could give them the best first impression before their phone starts getting blown up, before the low ballers and the tire kickers, before all the other wholesalers who are going to ask them the same things and say the same script over and over. Before all those people show up, they talk to me. And that was because I was the first person to reach out. I was calm, I was professional, and I was actually helpful. They remembered me. They remembered our conversation. They remembered the experience that I gave them. Every single seller that I get on the phone, I make sure that they write down my information, my name, email address, phone number, all that. I made sure that they wrote it down in the beginning of the phone call and make sure that they write down my offer at the end of the phone call on the same piece of paper. That way, whenever they put it away in their wallet or their purse, and they go to reach for something, they could remember me and my offer and the experience that I gave them when I had them on the phone. And remember, this is before their phone gets blown up. That became the leverage over my entire competition. Not any fancy software, no complicated systems, just being first and unforgettable. That's how I consistently pulled deals that everyone else swore was too competitive. That's why nobody wanted to call Zillow for sale by owners that had only been listed for a day or more, because they get the objection, oh, I just listed it, or I want to see what my other offers are. If you give them a good first impression, then you could let them go with confidence, knowing that they're going to remember you. And when their phone gets blown up by all these other amateurs, they're going to reach out to you, especially if you have a good CRM and follow-up sequence in place to make sure that you follow up with them on time. Within those first 30 days of calling those fresh Fizbo leads, everything changed. I went from getting 2 to 3 leads a week to getting 2 to 4 quality leads every single day that I was importing into my CRM. These are people who opened up, people who really told me their motivation, and the conversations were completely different. Instead of hearing things like, you're the 9th person to call me, I don't work with investors, hang up the phone, you're wasting your time, I started hearing things like, hello? Yeah, that's my house. What can I tell you about it? It was just completely different. Their mood was completely different. Their attitude was completely different. And they were actually open to staying on the phone with me for 30 plus minutes to actually hear an offer. That's when I realized something huge. Being first creates conversations, but being late creates competition. These sellers weren't annoyed or exhausted when I was talking to them. They weren't bombarded by 20 other investors. They weren't guarded. They were grateful that someone got to them early, before the chaos started. And when you focus on fresh leads instead of recycled ones, every conversation is going to feel like you're talking to the right person at the right time. And that changes everything. Now, when you start focusing on these good leads, these fresh leads, these hot leads, and you know that you're going to give them a good first impression, you cannot do that without a solid sales process. Over the years of doing this process over and over and over again, making $20,000 to $50,000 every single month just from Zillow alone, I pulled a little bit of everything from other people in the space and in the sales industry. People like Eric Klein, Jeremy Miner, Jerry Norton, Andy Elliott, John Lawlin, Chandler Sane, who I paid all of them, by the way, to be my mentor. But especially Eric Klein's 5-step sales process. Just that process alone is what helped me to scale to $20,000 every single month just from Zillow, using no marketing dollars. If you don't know what that sales process is, it's the intro, fact find, pitch, offer, and close. And then I even have a few other processes inside of each of those steps, but in a nutshell, that's the 5-step sales process when you're doing acquisitions in wholesale real estate. But like I said, I pulled a lot of other great things from other people like Jeremy Miner and NEPQ, Chandler Sane and his appointment setter and closer process, and his YouTube inbound lead system. And I've literally spent over $100,000 in all of the sales information that I know right now. And I've combined all of that to make my Zillow script. Still using that 5-step sales process framework, but have NEPQ and other sales tactics and word tracks that I've used and learned over time. And I put it in there and it works every single time. Keep in mind, this is the same script that I use to this day and the same script that all of my students use to this day, which has made them well over 6 figures combined. Because the truth of the matter is, you need this structure in order to consistently get $20,000 to $50,000 every single month. Because if your leads increase, but your systems don't, you will drown. I started building my own script, my own framework and negotiation flow. At first, it was rough, and I was nervous talking to sellers twice my age who knew more than I did, but repetition breeds rhythm. And soon, I wasn't hoping that I sounded confident, I was confident. This script has literally made me over $400,000 in just this year alone. Here's what my successful students understand. Confidence comes from competence, and competence comes from knowing your systems. When you know your market, you know your numbers, you know your process, the confidence becomes your default state. Once you know how to steer the conversation, every call becomes an opportunity, not an obstacle. Now let's get real for a second. Wholesaling isn't about luck, it's about math. You might make 100 plus offers before you get a few contracts, and that's okay, because those 95 no's, they're just stepping stones to the 5% of sellers who are truly motivated. The amateurs see rejection as a wall. Professionals see it as a filter. Think about gold mining. You sift through tons of dirt just to find a few shiny flakes. But that's how you get rich. Not by finding every piece of dirt, but by staying in the game long enough to uncover the gold. I talk about this extensively on my YouTube channel. I figured that over a 90-day period, if you have 20 conversations and make 3 offers every single day and try to get 1 contract signed a week, you are almost guaranteed to close at least 1 wholesale deal within that 90-day period. Honestly, I've never seen anybody take the full 90 days. Most people who do those KPIs consistently and keep track of them close their first wholesale deal within the first 60 days. And when you start locking up these contracts and start getting these properties locked up, the next level is building your buyer machine. Most beginners try to find every single buyer before they find a single deal, and they try to find 1 buyer for every single deal. But look, that's not a business. That's a gamble. You need systems that attract buyers like gravity. You need to focus on building relationships that outlast any other transaction. Because at the end of the day, this is a network game. This is all about who you know. If you have 5 good cash buyers in your back pocket who you know will always buy your deal, well then you're set to at least make $100,000 a year, minimum, as long as you keep bringing them consistent deals. I started positioning myself as a source of deals, not just another middleman or just another wholesaler who doesn't know what they're doing. And when you become that person, buyers don't negotiate you down, they chase you down. The difference between my students who scale and those who don't is simple. The successful ones, they understand that every system can be improved. They don't just find 1 buyer, they build a buyer network. They don't just make 1 offer, they have a systemized offer process. That is how you turn contracts into cash flow. And once you start closing deals consistently, you got to act like a professional. I didn't wait till I made $100,000 in wholesale real estate. When I made my first $20,000, I spent $5,000 on a mentor, and he taught me how to build an LLC and make a website so that I could start paying for my marketing and paying for text blasting. If you're familiar with that, you got to get things like a 10 DLC, a website, and a terms and policy page, things like that. But once you start getting real money, you got to start acting like a real expert. That way you know how to present yourself when you're talking to title companies, you're signing real contracts with buyers and they look at you as the authority, you have a real assignment assignment of contract and the buyers don't hesitate to give you EMD same day that they sign the contract, that's when the game changes. When you stop playing real estate and you start operating like a real business. Every closing becomes a celebration, not of luck, but by systems working properly, like a factory producing consistent profit instead of gambling for outcomes. And this is where most people plateau. Getting to the automation part, getting to the delegation to where you could actually scale and the wholesale business is actually running in the background. Most people who see a little bit of success, they keep doing deals, but they never build a business. You see, a deal maker trades time for money, but a business owner builds systems that create money from time. When I started implementing things like automation, tracking my KPIs, and building team processes and sales management processes, I realized I wasn't just hustling anymore, I was actually scaling. Anyone can get lucky and close a few deals, but my students aren't chasing luck. The difference is having someone who's already made this transition help you build the systems that create consistent results. I have multiple real-life examples of my students changing their life forever using this method. The Zillow for sale by owner method, like Caleb. He's one of my students. He made $43,000 within his first 2.5 months of using Zillow. At first, he was in a crappy situation and he didn't have a place of his own, but then he ended up buying his own house, moved his family in there, and his life has changed literally forever. Or my student Xavier. Literally, this guy, I will never forget him. He made $9,800 within the first 18 days of being a student just from using the Zillow for sale by owner method. And he's still doing $40,000. And he was actually able to scale to consistent $20,000 a month. Now he's at like $40,000, I think. And he was able to build out a marketing channel with cold callers and text blasting and things like that. And there's a ton of other students that are running a wholesale operation right now that pays them every single month, right? Without chaos and without guesswork. And these aren't cherry picked stories. These are real students who went from sporadic deals to a systematic success because they had someone who's actually been in the trenches with them, guiding them step by step. Now, let me be completely transparent. Information alone won't scale your business. Information is like a map. It's useful, but it's useless without a compass and someone who knows the actual terrain. Here's what makes me different from every other wholesale coach. I'm the most hands-on mentor you'll ever work with. I won't disappear after you join. I'll give you my personal cell phone number. Yes, my actual number that I use to this day to text everybody. When my students need help with their deals, they text me and I respond. Having the roadmap is cool, but having someone who's actually been through that roadmap and helped others get through that exact same roadmap, having someone like that help you get through that roadmap too, is literally the definer between success and failure. This is literally something that I would have given myself when I first started so that I could see success faster and start scaling much sooner the right way. I just walked you through the exact roadmap that I use to go from sporadic deals to consistent $50,000 months, and the same system that my students use to do the same. But knowing it isn't enough. Implementation is what changes everything. The students who successfully make this transition, they don't do it alone. They do it with someone who's built the bridge and can walk them across it. And that's exactly what I do. I don't sell courses and disappear. I personally mentor my students through the process. We analyze deals, fix contracts, optimize their systems, and scale their business together. If you're tired of chasing random deals, if you're done competing with 10 other wholesalers for the same property, and if you're ready to have extreme leverage over all of your competition and build a real business that generates consistent income every single month, then click the link below so we could book a strategy call. And on that call, we'll map out exactly what your wholesale business needs to hit consistent $20,000 to $50,000 every single month. And I'll show you how I could help you build it. But I'm only looking to work with a few people who are actually serious about scaling. So if you're just browsing for more free information, then this is not for you. But if you're ready to stop playing small and you're ready to install real systems instead of buckets, and if you're ready to turn your wholesale hustle into a real scalable business, then click that link, book the call, and let's get to work. Because the students who book a call with me this week are going to be the exact same students who close their first $20,000, $30,000, or $50,000 deal within the next 90 days. Let's build your system. Stay consistent.